Welcome to Figure Out Your Life podcast, the podcast where we try to find the answers to life's everyday questions. I'm your host, Toya T, aka Toya T, PhD, aka your sister from another mister, aka the best friend you need but didn't know that you wanted, aka I am enough. I am not an qualified. Let me stop playing, everybody. Welcome back. As you can tell, we are really trying to be consistent, but the pandemic, my new job, and just adjusting to that, it takes a lot out of me. And I have just decided just to do what I can. I'm going to try to put out more than 2 episodes a month. And I've even toyed with the idea of possibly being bi-weekly, but we shall see. As for now, we're going to just keep trucking and keep going. And again, if you want to be notified when I actually drop a episode, please make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you are listening to this. That is the best way to make sure that you are always getting the episodes whenever I drop them. So make sure you do that. All right, a few things that has happened between the last podcast and this one. One big thing was that I moderated a talk about the Black middle class during times of a pandemic and urban unrest. This was an event that was put together by Columbia College women, and it was an author alumni series with Dr. Mary Pattillo. And if you don't know who she is, she's a professor of sociology at Northwestern. And she also wrote this book called Black Picket Fences. I highly suggest that you pick it up. It was written in the 90s, but it's still very much relevant for today. She talks about how things have changed within the Black middle class. And she uses Chicago as an example because that's where she lives and that's where she has done most of her work. The interesting thing about Dr. Mary Pattillo and I is that I actually read her book, Black Picket Fences, in college. I read it my sophomore year, which is very interesting because she's a Columbia alum, Black female Columbia alum. The class I was taking was a sociology course. It was actually my first sociology course, which was taught by another Black female Columbia graduate, alumna. And the person who told me to take that class, because if you know me, when I set a plan, I stick to it. And I knew that I wanted to go to Columbia since I was 10 years old. And I also knew that I wanted to be a psych major, probably just as early because my mother was a psych major. And I was like, that sounds really cool to understand how people think, which turns out that is more the sociology part of it that I am interested in, not necessarily the understanding of the brain and how it functions and stuff like that. But what was interesting is that my mentor, my alumna mentor at Columbia, who was a Black woman also, she was the one that told me to take that class. The class was called Changing American Families. So this was a whole full circle moment when they asked me to moderate it. And I was like, that is so crazy because I read your book in my sophomore year of college. I still have it. I still have my little sophomore 19-year-old scribblings inside of it and underlined. So it was really cool to talk to her. And if you are interested in seeing this talk, a recording of this talk, I have it, and I will put the link in the show notes for you to watch. I highly suggest you watch it. It is about an hour, but it is chock full of really great information that I know that you all would be interested in, because if you listen to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you'd be interested in this information. Also, I am a week away from teaching, and I've said this several times, and for people who are new, I am not a new teacher. I have been teaching for quite some time, but this is my first time teaching at a high school as a high school teacher. Before I was a college professor, and I transitioned to secondary school, and because the course that I'm teaching is new and unique, and because I was also involved in the curriculum development of my course, they have allowed me to not teach for the first 2 months so that I could acclimate myself and get my course together, since it is a brand new course. They were like, yeah, you don't have to teach for the first 2 months. You'll start teaching in November. And November is finally here. And I have all my lesson plans. I have my course outlined, so I know exactly where I want it to go. And I had already talked to one of my supervisors about it. So we went over the whole thing. She said, sounds good. My other supervisor was like, yep, sounds good too. I like this. Is it possible to add this? And I'm like, yep, it fits right in there. So that's all good. I have, calendars where I know exactly what dates that things will happen. Even if they get pushed off, I'm able to adjust it. My online classroom now is up and running. I've sent out my Zoom links to the kids. And I'm telling you right now, I am nervous. Like, I have all this preparation. I'm telling you everything. I have nitpicked over my online Canvas course, like every word, every image, how things are highlighted. I have the first day assignment up, including homework, our in-class assignment. I got my PowerPoint. Everything is ready. Yet I am freaking out. I am so nervous. I feel like, I don't know what I think is going to happen. I love teaching and I'm really scared about messing up, especially since I am not a certified high school teacher, which I'm not really concerned about that since I do have a PhD and I've been teaching college level. I've taught people about a couple years younger than me, my age, and older. I've taught all kinds of different types of students in New York, in Massachusetts. I'm quite comfortable talking to students, but those were all in person. And I feel like the online aspect of it is really throwing me off, even though I have been talking to students using Zoom. I've sat in classes, I've participated, but I wasn't running those classes. I wasn't the host of the Zoom. I wasn't the teacher, the main teacher in the Zoom room. And I'm freaked out about first day technical issues, which for me, there's always some kind of first day gremlin trying to fuck up my tech on the first day that I'm ready to teach. So I'm concerned about that, even though I've run through things and I have backups of how to do things. And I've seen how other teachers have dealt with tech issues and just have moved along and said, you know what, we're going to go and do this instead and try this. I know all the things that I have to do, and it's not like I'm afraid of teaching high school students. I've taught in high schools, except I was teaching them college level courses in high school. But for some reason, I just feel like I don't know if I can do it. I just feel kind of underqualified. And it's even funnier because one of the HR people emailed me and she's like, oh, I don't see your certifications here. I'm not sure what class you teach. And I told her what class is officially on my contract. And she's like, well, you need to get certified in this. And I'm like, certification? Are you serious, lady? I did not come to teach high school so that I can go back to go take exams myself. Okay. So I got to deal with that because that just really freaked me out. I was like, girlfriend, why are you throwing these wrenches at me? Because now you are building up some anxieties and insecurities within me that is already on top of the fact that I am nervous about my first day of teaching. And it also happens to be the election week. Oh my gosh, there's just so much stress that I feel piling up. Luckily, my school is very good at adjusting. So the schedule for that week of the election, I won't be seeing the kids twice a week. It's just like this once. So first period, second period, third period, fourth period, fifth period, sixth period, seventh period just happens over the days like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So that is one good thing. If I teach it once and I bomb, I just have to go on to my next section and hopefully I'll do better, but I don't have to see those kids that I bombed until the next week. So that's the good thing. But this brings me to this week's episode. I have seen that imposter syndrome and the discussion of imposter syndrome has been trending lately. I've seen it in a couple articles. I've seen people talking about it without even talking about it. I've seen it in Instagram posts. I've seen it on Facebook, like just all over the place about dealing with imposter syndrome. And I felt like I needed to talk about it because that is something that I am currently dealing with. And so let's get into what it is. The term imposter syndrome was coined by psychologists Pauline R. Clance and Suzanne Imes in 1978 to describe an internal experience of intellectual phoniness in people who believe that they are not intelligent, capable, or creative despite evidence of high achievement. Imposter syndrome is the persistent belief that one's achievements have come about through some sort of accident or even deception, and that other people might be about to wise up to what's going on and find out. For example, If you are experiencing imposter syndrome, you might feel like you're a fraud, that you don't deserve your accomplishments, that you just got lucky, or you trick people into thinking that you're better than you really are. You could be found out at any minute. So my example and my worries, it's like the people finding out, oh my gosh, like she doesn't know what she is doing. Like, and that woman asked me for certifications and said that I needed to be certified here and there. I'm like, I have taught on college levels. I think I'm quite qualified to teach. But then it's still in the back of my mind, like, you are not certified, and that's what makes you different from some of your colleagues. And does that make you not as good as a teacher? I always look to other people to see how they're doing things, because I'm not always sure that I'm doing well or doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that in terms of when I'm teaching the kids, especially online, I'm afraid they're going to find I don't know what the hell I'm doing. They're going to think I just got hired because, I don't know, because I got a cute smile or something. But imposter syndrome is that consistent feeling that people are going to find out that you don't know what you're talking about. And it's common among high achieving people. So those who are type A students, honor roll students, people with multiple degrees, heads of really successful businesses or very successful professionals. But the interesting thing is that imposter syndrome is a very common state of mind experienced by most people at some point in their lives. Research estimates that at least 70% of the population, and I'm going to say that again, 70% of the population feels like an imposter. So it's not just something that high achievers experience, it is something that all people at some point in their lives will be experiencing or are currently experiencing. While imposter syndrome is not a diagnosable condition, it can result in negative mental health outcomes. Mental health experts believe that prolonged feelings of isolation and stress brought on by the phenomenon can lead to other DSM, and that is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's the book that is used by the American Psychiatric Association and to categorize mental disorders. So imposter syndrome can lead to other DSM recognized illnesses such as anxiety and depression. Studies also show that there is a racialized component to imposter syndrome, noting that experiences with racial discrimination, combating negative racial stereotypes about intellectual inferiority and underrepresentation may cause high-achieving Black people to feel like imposters despite impressive resumes. People of color are particularly vulnerable to this debilitating sensation, because for us, imposter syndrome isn't just an imaginary voice in our heads. We can hear it loud and clear when we receive almost daily messages from society that we truly don't belong. And of course, I had to bring it back to the last episode about the negative effects of the strong Black woman identity and where some of the stresses that Black women experience come from. Imposter syndrome is a big part of that. Black women contend with racial stereotypes where we have been told for centuries that we are not smart enough, we have smaller brains, we're lazy, we're not even human. And then you add on top the gendered stereotypes such as the strong Black woman, the angry Black woman, the hypersexual Black woman. Black women suffering with imposter syndrome might be triggered by feeling othered in predominantly white or exclusive spaces due to navigating gendered racial microaggressions on the job or in class. For example, I have experienced more than once, and maybe because I talk with my hands, so I teach with my hands, I've had some white male students do that shanae snap and neck movement at me, that kind of sassy gesturing that is just very stereotypical, like shanae from Martin, like Black girl around the way. And it's not something that is based in some kind of fact, but that is not how I am acting in that moment. I might be talking with my hands, but I know I'm not teaching the class like this, you know what I'm saying? And there's anything wrong with that, because sometimes I will go into those kind of voices and characterizations, but that is just to keep things interesting, because if you teach for more than an hour, if you talk for more than 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and you know that you might lose students. So I always make sure to keep it interesting and change the inflections in my voice, change the volume in my voice, change and add in different things just to keep them on their toes and keep them interested. But those kind of things on the job, like people messing up your name, or confusing your name with something else. Oh, I thought your name was LaToya. No, it's not. It's LaToya. Or they can't pronounce your name or even try to. In my case, it's usually just my last name, but my first name, thank God my parents gave me a name that I feel like is easily spelled and pronounced. And that is just one example of showing Black women that you're not good enough to be respected. But we also have to deal with stereotype threat, which is when you know there's a certain stereotype about your group, and when you're put in a position to be examined, assessed, tested, that having that stereotype at the forefront of your mind decreases your ability to do your task. So they've done studies between Black and white students, and then they'll have them do some kind of like SAT prep or some kind of like exam like that, and they'll put race at the very beginning on some of them. And for the Black kids who had to put their race down first, they got lower scores than those who didn't have to write down their race, identify their race before they took the exam. They found that even just mentioning race really starts off this whole train of thought of inferiority and not being able to do as well. Because a lot of things that Black women are contending with that might trigger imposter syndrome, and existing in a culture that either ignores or objectifies them does not help. So the way we understand and discuss the imposter syndrome has to account for these different social realities, even though when you mostly look at imposter syndrome, they don't tend to go into that racialized component, but I felt that it was important to add in those studies that do. Imposter syndrome has become a part of life for many people of color, but that doesn't have to be the case. We can battle these feelings. If you feel like you're suffering from imposter syndrome, I have 5 tips to help you deal with imposter syndrome. So here we go. 1, acknowledge what you're feeling. If you feel like you got lucky when you actually prepared well and worked hard for your job on a task, you find it hard to accept praise. So someone tells you you did a great job, or congratulations on your success, and you just kind of, okay, yeah, thank you. Or you say like everyone does the same thing, or I really just winged it, or you minimize your skill set and your abilities. You apologize for yourself when you didn't actually do something. You hold yourself to incredibly, sometimes impossibly high standards. You find the fear of failing paralyzing. You avoid expressing confidence because you think people will see it as overcompensating or obnoxious. You're convinced you're not enough. So when you have these thoughts, what you need to do is to pay attention to your language choices, both when you're talking to other people and when you're talking to yourself. Now, that is the one that I need to work on, because the way I talk to myself, and I've said it before in previous podcasts, like, you know, treating yourself well, treating yourself the way that you would want to be treated, treating yourself how you treat other people is all good for your mental health, because negative talk can have negative mental health outcomes, which can also turn into negative physical health outcomes. It's important to talk to yourself nice. Shout out to, what is her name? Dream Doll. Talk to me nice. You got to talk to yourself nice. Talk to yourself nice, especially when you're talking about your work. For me, it's always, oh my gosh, LaToya, you're so dumb. Oh, you didn't know that. Oh my gosh, like the kids are going to say that you're so stupid. Oh my gosh, do you not understand what that word means? Oh my goodness. Is it going to be a problem? And my main problem with this whole certification thing is that I'm afraid that I might fail, because then I have to study. And now that I can't study and take a test and pass exams, pretty much every certification that I've had to take, I've passed on the first try. I just don't want to do it because I'm afraid that I might fail. I have a cousin that took her years to pass the teaching certifications, and in the back of my mind I'm like, that could be me. And it's not like there's anything wrong with failing the first time you do something, or failing a test and continuing to do it until you pass, but I ain't got time for that. I got a job, and if y'all trying to tell me that I can't continue to have my job unless I have these certifications that you asked me to have, what, in November? And the lady was like, oh, you can go to this online course. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no interest in doing that, because I don't want the pressure of an exam. Okay. I got through that. I've done those things. I was in graduate school for 10 years. I was in school in general for the majority of my life, for like 29 years, 30 years. I was in school, a student. Okay. A student. And I'm done with that. I'm sorry. Now I'm the teacher. I am the teacher, not the student. I don't want to take this thing. And I mainly don't want to take it because I'm afraid of failing. And I feel like people are going to find out I'm a fraud, even though I taught college level at my last school for 6 years. I taught for 2 years in New York. I have 8 years solid of teaching experience with a variety of students, but yet still I'm scared. I'm scared of failing, and I'm scared of people finding out that I'm not as smart as my titles suggest. Even to the point that even when I talk to parents, at first, I introduced myself as Miss Tavernier because I didn't necessarily want to use my official title, even though my official title is something that is important within academia. It's not like I'm in a hospital and telling people to call me doctor and I don't have a medical degree. This is a school where I have a doctorate in sociology. And even then, I have been like weary of telling them at first. And one parent actually told me to be proud. She was like, "Oh, you're a doctor. I didn't know. I'm sorry I didn't call you doctor." And I said, that's because I'm not sure what to have people call me, because I feel like it's pretentious to be like, "Oh, call me Dr. T," when you're calling everybody Miss or Mr. She's like, "You worked hard for that and you should use your title. Be proud of your hard work." And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. But sometimes it's hard for me to own my success. And if you find your success or the praise others give you uncomfortable, like I do, it's best to do some reflective thinking on where those types of thoughts came from and what it means in your professional life. That's one thing with imposter syndrome. You have to pay attention to your feelings. Know that they're valid. They're very valid, even though they may not be true. So you may feel like you're unworthy, that you're a fraud, but you applied for this job and you got it. So you're not a fraud. You applied to get into the school and you got in. So you're not a fraud. You're not just lucky. If you were lucky, you wouldn't still be there. It would be very hard for you to get through. That is something that you have to pay attention to, that even though the things that you're thinking about yourself are not true, the feelings are still valid. So you have to be very reflective about your thinking, where it comes from, what does it mean to you, how does it come out in your professional life, your personal life, and then work on those things. Number 2, talk to somebody about it. Because imposter syndrome thrives on secrecy and silence. It's like guilt and shame. You feel like, oh, I can't tell anybody. Oh, I must I have to keep it to myself, but I have to deal with it by myself. No, you don't. Calling it what it is, calling it imposter syndrome, calling it this state of mind that is making you feel like you're an imposter, but you're not. And talking to someone else about it can help you fight it. No one should suffer in silence. Sharing your thoughts and experiences with someone else will make you better equipped to deal with your imposter syndrome. I recommend sharing them with your close friends and family members, a therapist. Those are always great. And even now it's even better because you don't have to go if you have a problem with talking to someone face to face. You could do teleconferencing with a therapist or a mental health professional, which will be a lot easier now because you can do it on the Zoom, and that's a lot more common now. Talk to a mentor or a spiritual leader, if that's your pastor, if that is whomever. Talk to somebody so they can help you talk candidly about your struggles with imposter syndrome. Tell them what you are thinking. Tell them that you feel like, I don't deserve to be here, and have them help you work through that. Hopefully that person will reveal to you when they have felt like they didn't deserve something, unless they're someone who just always thinks that everything that they have done is well deserved. Number 3, know that there are many people, including hugely successful people, who have built amazing careers while coping with imposter syndrome. I don't have to go through the list. Every single person has gone through some kind of imposter syndrome. Again, unless you're part of that 30%, there are many hugely successful people that have gone through imposter syndrome. So one example, I'm not saying that I know, but I'm pretty sure when Beyonce came up with her alter ego, Sasha Fierce, it very much the way she talked about it sounded like she didn't trust at first that Beyonce was enough to be entertaining. That maybe someone told her that she needed to kick it up 10 notches when she was younger, when she started first performing, and she had to come up with someone. Like she said, when she'd go into the Sasha Fierce identity, when she would take that on, Sasha was fearless. Sasha danced hard. Sasha sang powerfully and with lots of emotion. Sasha wasn't afraid to fall on stage and get back up, but Beyonce is. And I remember her talking about how she finally grew out of the Sasha Fierce stage and said, well, Sasha is no longer here. This is Beyonce. This is me. I have integrated Sasha into me, and I am going on stage as myself. And that is very much signs of her dealing with her imposter syndrome, that she created this persona so that she can say that Sasha is the one that is a great performer and dancer. Sasha isn't afraid to go out in front of millions of people. Like, Sasha is that person, but Beyonce is shy. And now she is taking that in. And that is just an example of one person that I think that people look up to. We all know that Beyonce is super successful, but even she has had times in her life when she felt like she wasn't good enough. So know that, and know that people can deal with it and be hugely successful. Number 4, replace negative thoughts with facts about what you've accomplished. Be kind to yourself. I already said talk to yourself nice, but I wanted you to realize that the negative talk that you have about yourself, thinking that you don't deserve things, I wanted you to recognize that first. So this is a whole process of recognizing those feelings so you know how to deal with them, talking about it with somebody else, and then knowing that other people who are highly successful are able to be successful while coping with imposter syndrome. And here I'm telling you to replace those negative thoughts with the facts. The way to combat negative talk is to brag on yourself, have positive self-talk, practice positive self-talk. And I talked about this and how to treat yourself better. Talk to yourself like you would talk to anybody, to a lover, to a kid. Say that you are smart, you are brilliant, you are beautiful. Okay, you are enough. You got this, girl. Be kind to yourself. Not only can it help you become less stressed and anxious, but it can also help you build the courage to do things that will bring you greater rewards. So first, what you need to do is to try to catch yourself whenever you have a negative thought. For example, if you find yourself thinking, I just got lucky when I got this job, I just got lucky I got into that school, I just got lucky when I won that award. Challenge yourself. Challenge that thought by thinking, what steps did I take and what work did I put in to get to this point, and then answer the question. So for me, I got this job somehow by crook or crook. And now they're telling me that I possibly might have to take a certification. Oh my gosh, they're going to find out that I ain't it. I can't really even teach. Like, I haven't taught for the first two months. So they really don't know if I can teach and how I can handle students. And the way that I'm dealing with this anxiety about my first week of teaching is to remind myself, 1, you have 4 more degrees than these students. So why are you afraid of these high school students? You have a high school degree, you have a bachelor's degree, a master's, and a PhD. You've been through school for 29 years. I think you got it. Not even think you got it. You got it. You got it, girl. You at least have that in this setting. Okay. And particularly what you're teaching. Because the thing that I'm teaching, I created. I have put this together, picked what I want to teach, what I don't want to teach. I've gone through the material. It's stuff that I am comfortable teaching, stuff that I'm excited about teaching, stuff that I've been talking about teaching for years. That's why they gave you the job, LaToya. I love working with students. That's one thing that I know that I am great at. This is my passion. It comes out when I do it. When I step into a classroom, it is not work for me. I have always prided myself that when I am in my zones, I am the shit, okay? This is what I do. This is what I am passionate about. This is what I would do even if you didn't pay me. But please pay me. I am good at talking to people and teaching them things. I've asked students, can you tell that I like being here? Because I come in here when I have had bad days. I have been stressed, sick, all kinds of things. But when I come into the classroom and I start teaching a lesson, I'm in it. Okay, I am in it. I am fully immersed in it. And that comes through. Those are the things that I need to remember when I go into my online classroom and start teaching. You're going to be fine, LaToya. You're going to be fine. See, that's how you do it. I just gave you an example, and this is real, how I just went through and calmed myself. I might be nervous still on that first day, but I know that there are these things to just pull back up and say, you've accomplished all these things. You got through graduate school, even when it was hard, even when you wanted to quit. You got through, even when you felt like a dummy, because everybody else was so much older than you in your mind and had so much more life experience and knowledge. And you're sitting in the class like, what? Are we reading the same books? What is going on here? You have it. You can do it. So that is an example of how to get through that. You can also use affirmations, which are short, focused, positive statements about a goal you have. For example, try these when you feel like an imposter. When you feel imposter syndrome creeping in, try saying this to yourself. I am smart. I am enough. I am confident in who I am and my abilities. Put that up somewhere. Put it wherever your desk is. If you have a desk at home, if you're back at work, write that down. Put it in your phone. Or put something else, another positive affirmation that does it for you. Put it there and repeat it whenever you feel like you're not the shit. Because you are the shit. You're dope. You're enough. You're smart. You're intelligent. You can get it done. Your failures do not define you. You are a success by just being here still, by just living, by continuing to live, to thrive, to survive. That is a success. Especially if you're a person of color, because there's plenty of people who do not want to see us alive on this earth. So just breathing and taking time for yourself and working on yourself is a success. And the reason why I said that it's important to use affirmations is that psychologists have found that repeating affirmations like the one that I mentioned or like others can improve stress and anxiety levels. Perhaps because these positive statements build a bridge into your subconscious mind and it spreads. So instead of spreading the negative talk, spread some positive self-talk, because the negative self-talk will always be there, will always come back up, because that's how we are as human beings. But like how they had that office linebacker, have those positive affirmations, those positive thoughts be that office linebacker that comes in as soon as somebody tries to mess with you. It just comes in and just pushes that person out the way. Not even pushes them, bum rushes them. Knocks them to the ground, knocks that negative thought out. Let those positive affirmations be your office linebacker of your mind. Build up your office linebacker with brags. It's okay to be braggadocious here. It is okay because it's you. It's to pump you up. Keep track of your wins in a private document. There are a lot of different ways to track your successes, and the metrics you use to depend on your job. So if you're a blogger, it might be keeping track of monthly average page views. If you went from 0 views to 100 page views in a day, celebrate that, write that down, and watch those numbers go up as you put the work in. If you're a salesperson and you made 10 sales in a day, and then you look at your team and they only make an average about 5 sales, put that down. Put down that win. One of the best things you can do is to create a folder on your computer. Evernote is a great tool that you can use on your computer, on your phone. It has a lot of storage, a lot of ways to bookmark things. I've been using it since graduate school to store screenshots, emails, tweets, recipes, gift ideas, research, articles that I want to keep, milestones. And I love that I can access it wherever I am because it's up in the cloud. So whenever you need a lift, just go through your files and really pump yourself up and remind yourself that you are it. You are not an imposter. You are you. It's hard to be an imposter of yourself. You are you. You are you, and you are the best you, and you're the only one who can be you. If you want to live the best life that you can, you need to pump yourself up and really appreciate yourself. And my last tip, number 5, is to trust yourself and your ability to succeed. Let go of your inner perfectionist. Perfectionism feeds into imposter syndrome, which makes sense. When you feel like you're a fraud, it's usually because you're comparing yourself to some perfect outcome that's either impossible or unrealistic. Holding yourself to that standard can be counterproductive because you're trying to be something that you cannot, okay? That you cannot. At some point, you need to take a step back and ask yourself, when is good enough good enough? When is that paper, that project, that product, that company, that podcast that you've been working on, when is it going to be good enough for you? We all have to go through our processes, but remember, there is a time when you need to step back and ask yourself, when is it good enough? And sometimes that time is now. So with that, I am done with this part of the episode. Now let's move on to figure this out. So here it is. Well, figure this out for me. Am I wrong for being upset about folks traveling internationally for leisure during a pandemic? Figure this out for me. Is it wrong? Am I a hater? Am I a negative Nancy? Because I feel that unless it is for an emergency or for work, everyone needs to stay their ass at home because we're at the top of this COVID infection rate and death toll. We are the problem. Even if you have been doing all you can to be safe and to be healthy, unless you're flying on a private jet, you don't know if Billy and Jane from Texas have it, and they may have it, and they may be staying at your hotel, and they may be spreading it. I'm starting to feel like, is it me? Am I crazy? How are we ever going to get out of this if you continue to move around when you don't have to? I don't see how that's any different than people who are like, oh, well, I don't have to wear a mask. We don't have to wear masks here. Just because they tell you that you are allowed to travel doesn't mean you have to. When you travel internationally, you just put yourself at a higher risk. And when you're doing it for leisure, not because you have to go to work or you have to go visit family who are sick, but you're doing it because you need to go and do something for yourself, like find another form of self-care. Save up that money and go traveling when everyone else can go traveling. Is it wrong that I'm upset about this, that it upsets me, that it makes me mad, that it makes me look at some of my friends' side? Like, why the hell did you just travel right now? Why did you go on a Indigenous Peoples weekend trip? Was it that necessary? Did you really need to go to Mexico? Did you really need to go and sip margaritas on the beach? Did you really need to? Or could you have waited? I don't know. But anyway, if you can figure that out for me, you let me know. And with that, I am done. As always, I want to thank everybody for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode and enjoyed this podcast, please do me several favors. 1, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to this. 2, review this podcast wherever you are listening to this, so that I can shout you out. Give me a 5-star review and I'll shout you out on the show. 3, share this podcast with at least 3 friends or people that you like. Why 3? Because 3 is my favorite number and it's the magic number. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I want you to stay blessed, to stay healthy, to wash your hands, to socially distance, and to believe in yourself and to know that you're enough. And I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.